Hey everybody, what is going on? HexLex here. Got another Master Duel video for you, coming at you with my combo guide for MALISS. So the big thing that I wanted to do for my first MALISS build and what I'm going to be doing for this combo guide is, in particular, we're actually playing a build that does not play TB-11. So TB-11, for those who don't know, let me find it under actually related cards here, is actually this one. So TB-11 is a card that summons a MALISS monster from the deck. It does give you some stronger end boards with your combo lines, slightly stronger, but at the cost of playing a card that doesn't really do a lot by itself, not as good going second, and is a little bit of a brick in that regard. It's pretty optional. So again, I opted for my first build to play without it, so if you're looking for a combo guide without TB-11, you've got it here. There are plenty out there that utilize TB-11, and if you would like to see me cover those lines, definitely let me know in the comments below, and I can find some of what I consider to be the strongest lines with TB-11, and we'll show those off. But for the time being, I'm just going to use this very, very standard and basic build that I've got here. Again, only playing the bare essentials. There are a few optional cards in the extra deck here as well, namely the Firewall Dragon, and to an extent the Terahertz too. But again, it's pretty simple to combo without these, and where the differences are, I will be sure to point those out. So that's basically the gist of the guide. Here is the build. Let's get into these combos. Okay, for our first one-card combo, I'll show you the line with MALISS P Dormouse. This is also going to be what I consider to be the strongest one-card combo of the deck. As we're going through this combo line, I'm going to try to explain the roles of the cards and sort of help make it easier to parse what's going on, not just for this line, but for future ones as well. We're going to start by normal summoning Dormouse and activating the on-field effect to banish a MALISS monster from our deck. For this combo line, we're going to start with the March Hare. The reason we're starting with March Hare is because we can not only add it back with its effect when it's banished, but also we haven't used the banish effect of Dormouse yet, so we can make use with that with the March Hare here in just a moment. A lot of other combo lines will have you start by banishing a MALISS monster like Dormouse, and in that situation, March Hare wouldn't be as viable. Now we're going to link off the Dormouse into Link Decoder. And from here we can activate the in-hand effect of March Hare, banishing that Dormouse from our graveyard and special summoning it to our field. Now we can activate the banish effect of Dormouse in order to summon itself. If I ever refer to a quote-unquote banish effect, I'm talking about the effect that lets the MALISS monster special summon itself. Now that we have 3 monsters on the field, including a MALISS monster, let's go ahead and link them off into not Heart Scripter, but Red Ransom. We're going to go into Red Ransom here with these 3. Alright, now this is a pretty cool aspect of this combo line. We can actually chain block the Red Ransom search to stop it from getting Ash Blossomed with the Link Decoder effect. Simply click Red Ransom first to make it Chain Link 1, and Link Decoder second to make it Chain Link 2. Let's throw Link Decoder over here. Monster placement does actually matter here. I'll point out where it does. So far it doesn't too much, but I like to get Link Decoder a little bit out of the way. Alright, so at this point, we have hit 6 summons. If your opponent's going to drop a Nibiru on you, they would do it here. But if they don't, we're just going to go into a 2-material Appaloosa. And believe it or not, it actually really doesn't matter which of those 2 things happens, because the rest of the combo line from activating MALISS and Underground is going to play out the same either way. It's just a matter of if you have a 2-mat Appaloosa or a Nib token on your field at this point. Alright, we're going to activate the MALISS in Underground. We can banish the other spell card, MALISS in the Mirror, directly from our deck. This allows us to activate the effect of MALISS in the Mirror. We're going to want to banish the Red Ransom out of our graveyard. You'll know to banish this one in particular because we've already activated the banish effects of our other MALISS monsters. MALISS combo lines look really complicated on the surface, and they are mostly because of how many different ways you can go about them. But when it comes to the effects that you're activating, it's actually relatively easy to keep track of. It's, what do I banish? It's simply the thing that I haven't used the banish effect of yet. So we'll banish the Red Ransom, and we're going to want to add the White Rabbit from deck to hand. We're adding White Rabbit specifically because we're about to banish it from our hand here in a moment. Now that we've banished Red Ransom, we can summon off of its own effect. I like to put it right here underneath the Appaloosa. And now we can banish a card from our deck. We're going to go ahead and banish the last Malice monster that we have not banished yet, and that's going to be Chessie Cat. Again, we know to banish exactly Chessie Cat because this is the last main deck Malice monster that we have not activated the banish effect of. We'll do so here. Now, the placement of Chessie Cat in particular is important. We're going to want to put it right here in the middle zone next to Red Ransom. Now from here we can activate the effect of Chessie Cat, banishing the white rabbit that's in our hand, and this will let us draw 2 cards from our deck. This isn't just a benefit, like a side benefit though. This is actually part of our combo line, because now that we've banished the white rabbit, we can special summon white rabbit directly from the banish, using her banish effect. So there we go, now we've used the banish effects of all of our Malice main deck monsters. We're going to activate the white rabbit effect, and we're going to want to set the GWC. When it comes to turn 1 plays for a non-TB-11 build, you are pretty much always going to set GWC with White Rabbit, with one exception that I'll point out during that combo line. So we'll set GWC here. Alright, now at this point, we are going to want to make sure that we go into White Binder. After summoning Red Ransom, White Binder is typically going to be the next Malice monster you want to go into. However, for this combo line, we're not going straight into White Binder. First, I actually want to make the Firewall Dragon. We're going to do so with the White Rabbit, as well as our Red Ransom, using it as 3 materials. If you weren't playing Firewall, you could go straight into White Binder, though. Alright, so for Firewall Dragon, we're going to go ahead... Well, you want to go straight to White Binder, you'd go into Splash Mage first. We'll get into that in a second. Now that we've summoned Firewall Dragon, we're going to go ahead and activate the effect, returning one of our Malice main deck monsters. Doesn't really matter which one. I'll just get White Rabbit here. And now this is why it's important to put Chessie Cat in the middle zone exactly. We just need it to be next to the Firewall Dragon. That way, as we link it off for Lingaribo, as seen here, we end up activating the Firewall Dragon's effect, and this will allow us to special summon the White Rabbit from our hand. Beautiful. Okay. Now at this stage, we can go ahead and go into our Splash Mage. We're going to do so with the White Rabbit and the Lingaribo. Now Splash Mage's effect will activate. We'll bring back any one of our Malice monsters. It doesn't matter which one. I'll just get White Rabbit again. And now we're ready to go into the White Binder. Again, if you don't play Firewall Dragon, then earlier when you had Red Ransom plus your other 2 Malice monsters, you can use 2 of them to go into Splash Mage at that point. But here we're going to go Splash Mage plus the monster it brought back in order to make the White Binder. Now, White Binder has an optional on-summon effect to banish up to 3 cards in any graveyards. Sometimes you activate this effect during your combo line, and sometimes you don't. Now, that sounds really complicated, trying to figure out when you use it and when you don't, right? When you activate and when you don't. However, there's actually a really easy way to keep track, and that's just to simply look at your graveyard and see which of the banish effects you have or have not used yet. So, because I have used all of the banish effects of each Malice monster currently in my graveyard, there is no need for me to banish cards from the graveyard right now, so we will not be activating White Binder's effect right now. What we will be doing, however, is activating the face-down GWC. We can do so the same turn we set it by banishing a Malice monster we control, true of every Malice trap card. So we're going to banish this White Binder, and now we can summon any Malice monster from our graveyard. It doesn't really matter which one. I'll just go ahead and grab Red Ransom, because why not? And we will gain some life points. It actually is good to summon Red Ransom to gain the most amount of life points. Now we can activate the White Binder effect, which will special summon her to our field, as well as draw a card from our deck. Again, we have the optional on-summon effect, but yet again, we do not have anything we want to banish out of our graveyard. We do want to activate this effect of White Binder, though, to set a mouse trap from deck or graveyard. We actually want to reset the GWC from our graveyard. No need to set the MTP, we can actually set that during the opponent's turn. Alright, now that we have the GWC set, we're finally going to summon the Terahertz, using Red Ransom or White Binder as 3 materials, and then Firewall Dragon and your other Malice monster. Of course, we can then use the Terahertz effect in order to send D-Save Worm from the deck to the graveyard. And there you have it. That's what our end board for the end of our turn 1 looks like. Now, you will, of course, want to set a bunch of trap cards to make sure you don't have to discard down to 6 cards because you drew a million cards because this deck is broken. Now, I'm going to sort of demonstrate going into our opponent's turn to show you how this end board is a lot better than it looks. Already, though, we do have 2 monster negates as well as the D-Save Worm aggregator. We can then send that off of the Terahertz for another negate. You could also be playing Pack-Bit in order to get a, removal, pushing a monster into the back row. Alternatively, you could also play Code of Soul and link summon Heartscriptor during your opponent's turn. Also, if you're not playing Terahertz, then you can simply summon Heartscriptor instead of Terahertz in pretty much any one of these combo lines. But going into our opponent's turn, I'm just going to show you a little bit of what we can do. So by activating GWC, not necessarily during the draw phase, but just at some point during your opponent's turn, we can special summon the White Binder from our graveyard. In fact, the opportune time to do this is when your opponent has a card in the graveyard that you want to banish, because now we can do that. We can activate White Binder and banish up to 2 cards from our opponent's graveyard, as well as banishing the Red Ransom from our graveyard. Or if your opponent only has 1 card to banish, you could banish another one of your Malice main deck monsters. But let's even just assume they have 2 cards you want to banish, and let's only banish Red Ransom. We're going to do the absolute minimum here and show you what you can still get off that. Red Ransom effect is going to activate to special summon. And now we can banish from our deck the White Rabbit. Now we can activate both Red Ransom in order to search some follow-up, as well as White Rabbit in order to special summon herself. White Rabbit summons to the field. Red Ransom adds another field spell for follow-up on the next turn. But this is more than just follow-up, this is actually more disruption, because the White Rabbit is now able to set MTP directly from the deck. Now MTP, like every other Malice trap card, can be activated by banishing a Malice monster we control. This not only adds another Malice monster from deck to hand, but then banishes any card on the field. So you're seeing just a small sampling of what your interaction on your opponent's turn could look like. Not only do we have all the initial negates we set up, but we can banish cards from our graveyard, or their graveyard, and ours, as well as their field. This of course doesn't include anything else you set or drew, so on and so forth. But yeah, I'm not going to be going quite as in-depth in the other combo lines, just to sort of go through those a little bit more quickly, but again, for this one, I wanted to stop and explain why we were doing the things and how to make comboing for this deck a little bit easier for you when you go to do it on your own. But let's go ahead and show off some of the other 1-card combos here. Okay, our next 1-card combo is going to be with Malice P White Rabbit. Now, this combo line is going to be the most different from builds that are playing TB-11, so this is going to be a particularly important line if you're playing a build like mine. Now, the reason that this line is possible is because of the release of March Hare in addition to everything else, and that'll become pretty apparent as we're starting the combo. We're going to start by normal summoning the White Rabbit. Now we'll activate the effect, and I know I mentioned before that for pretty much every combo, you're going to want to set GWC off of White Rabbit with one exception. This is the one exception. We're going to set MTP here. Now, again, it might seem a little bit complicated that we're doing something different, but it's a pretty easy exception to remember. If you start with White Rabbit and you're doing that 1-card combo with nothing else, set MTP. Otherwise, set GWC. Fairly easy way to remember it. So, we're going to set MTP, and we can now activate, of course, by banishing the White Rabbit. And now we can add a Malice monster from deck to hand. We are going to want to add the Malice P March Hare. From here, the White Rabbit Banish effect activates in order to special summon herself. And now we can activate the effect of our March Hare by banishing the MTP from the graveyard. At this point, we're going to go ahead and make our Splash Mage using March Hare and White Rabbit. And we'll special summon right over here. Let's activate Splash Page's effect. We'll bring back one of our monsters. Doesn't matter which one. I'll just pick White Rabbit. And now we're going to summon the Red Ransom. Really easy way of remembering Malice combos is that they generally summon Link monsters in about the same order. Not necessarily Splash Mage here, but the Malice Link monsters, right? You always summon Red Ransom before White Binder if you're ever confused about which Link 3 to summon. And then if you're making Heart Scripter, that's always last. Alright, so we're going to activate Red Ransom. You can use this in order to add Malice in Underground from deck to hand. Let's go ahead and activate the field spell Malice in Underground here. We're going to want to banish the Dormouse, because we haven't banished that yet, and we need more bodies. So Dormouse, upon being banished, will be able to special summon herself. And we're going to go ahead and activate the Dormouse effect, banishing the last card we have not used the banish summon effect of, which is Chessy Cat. There is still March Hare, which has the banish add effect, but we've already summoned March Hare off of her own effect, so no point in banishing that. Chessy effect is going to activate here, and we'll special summon her to our field. Okay, at this point, we are going to want to go ahead and turn one of our monsters into Link Decoder. Doesn't really matter which one. Okay, from here, we are now going to want to summon our White Binder. Because again, we're always summoning the Red Ransom before the White Binder. So we are going to want to send all 3 of these. It looks a little bit weird sending a Link 3 and 2 other monsters to summon a Link 3, but it is correct. Now, for this combo line, again, we simply check our graveyard to see if we want to activate the White Binder effect. Do we want to banish anything? Well, is there anything we haven't activated the banish effect of? Actually, yes, we have both Red Ransom, and as mentioned earlier, March Hare has not used the banish effect. So let's go Chainlink 1 White Binder. We'll pick Red Ransom and March Hare. The other ones have used their banish effects. And then we can also go for Link Decoder to bring itself back. Let's throw a Link Decoder right over here. Alright, now that we've banished both Red Ransom and March Hare, we can activate both effects. And of course, March Hare is going to end up targeting herself. Alright, so March Hare adds herself back to hand. And Red Ransom can now summon from the banish. We'll throw her right over here. Now, we actually don't have to banish a card off Red Ransom because we've already used all of the main deck banish effects of each Malice monster, so I'm going to go ahead and click no here. We will, however, want to activate the White Binder effect in order to be able to set the GWC from our deck face down onto the field. Let's go ahead and activate the GWC effect at this point. We can banish our White Binder, because we haven't used her banish effect yet, and we'll summon any one of our main deck Malice monsters from the graveyard. Doesn't particularly matter which one. Actually, it does kind of matter. We should pick the one that gains us the most life points. I always forget that part, but it is very unimportant in the grand scheme of things. Alright, White Binder can special summon herself here, and draw a card from our deck. Alright, now at this point, it's time to pretty much just make our end board. There's a couple of different ways that you could do this, actually. You could make Firewall Dragon if you wanted to. You could make Heart Scripter. You could go straight into Terahertz. If you are going to make the Firewall Dragon and do that whole line, yeah, I suppose I could just show that off here. Not 100% necessary, but you would want to use Link Decoder, and then whichever Link 3 monster is in between your main deck monster and your other Link 3, so that's going to be Red Ransom here. We'll use that as 3 materials. Summon the Firewall Dragon. Now we can activate the Firewall Dragon effect, bringing back one of our main deck monsters to the hand. Doesn't really matter which one. And then as we go to link off into Linkuriboh with the main deck monster we summoned earlier, now we get to activate the Firewall Dragon effect in order to special summon whatever we summoned earlier. You know, you could actually always do it in this order. adding back the March Hare and then summoning the Chessy Cat, and then activate Chessy Cat's effect, banishing that March Hare you added back earlier in order to draw a couple more cards. So going into Firewall Dragon is actually beneficial, even though it is optional. In this particular line, it's going to get you a couple more draws. Now at this point, all that's left is to make Terahertz. We're going to use White Binder, Chessy Cat, and you have a couple of options here. You could either use Firewall Dragon and leave Lingaribo on the field for an extra trap card negate, or you could use Lingaribo and leave Firewall Dragon up. There's not a ton of benefit to leaving up Firewall Dragon though, because it will not be able to use this first effect. This is only once while the monster is face up on the field. So I'm just going to link off the Firewall Dragon and keep the Lingaribo up. If you're going first and you don't know what you're playing against, this could actually be pretty useful in the mirror match, because of course Malice is going to want to activate a bunch of trap cards during their turn. And of course, we can use Terahertz in order to send off the D-Save Worm. Again, like I said, there's a bunch of different ways you could do that. If you're not playing Firewall Dragon, you don't have to go into Firewall Dragon. And as always, instead of Terahertz, you could make Malice Q Heartscriptor if you value the Banish higher than having a Spell Trap and then a follow-up negate. I like the Terahertz a little bit more. And again, if you're playing Code of Soul, you can actually make Terahertz, send D-Save Worm, then on their turn send Code of Soul, and make Heartscriptor during their turn. Bunch of different options there, but... Alright, that is the overall basics of the White Rabbit line if you are not playing TB-11. We do still have another line to show off, so let's finish with that one. Alright, and how fitting. We opened both Malice and Underground and Gold Sarcophagus for this hand. This line can be performed by beginning with either of these spell cards. It actually doesn't matter which one. You could play out the line slightly differently if you begin with Gold Sarc, and I'll point out the difference there. But you could also do it the exact same way I do it here between both of these cards, and it'll play out the same. So let's do Malice and Underground. Let's go ahead and activate that. We're going to want to banish our Dormouse from the deck. Dormouse effect can special summon. We'll throw her right over here. And now we can activate Dormouse effect in order to banish White Rabbit. We're going to want to banish the White Rabbit off of Dormouse here. Now, White Rabbit effect can summon and special summon herself to the field. Now we activate White Rabbit effect, and because we are not doing the White Rabbit one-card combo line, but rather the Malice and Underground one-card combo line, we're doing GWC is what we're setting here. Again, you only set MTP off of White Rabbit on turn 1 if you are doing the White Rabbit one-card combo line. We are not, so we're setting GWC. Okay, now at this point it's important to keep in mind that we have used the banish effects of both Dormouse and White Rabbit, so we can't just go banishing them, you know, willy-nilly here. We're going to want to link them into the Splash Mage. In a lot of lines you do summon Splash Mage sooner rather than later. It's really just in that Dormouse line where you end up summoning Splash Mage more towards the end of the combo line. Splash Mage effect, we're going to bring back one of our monsters, doesn't really matter which one, I'll just pick Dormouse. And we will turn them into Red Ransom. When it comes to Malice Link 3s, we always make Red Ransom, then White Binder, then Heartscriptor. Red Ransom F, we're going to go ahead and activate that here. Now we already, of course, have activated the field spell, so we're just going to grab Malice in the Mirror. Okay, now we need a way to banish our Red Ransom. Fortunately, we have already set that up. We're going to activate GWC, banishing the Red Ransom that's on our field to activate it, and we'll summon one of the main deck monsters from our graveyard. It does not particularly matter which one. I'll just get Dormouse. This will allow us to activate the effect of Red Ransom in order to special summon herself back to the field. And now that we can banish a card from our deck, we are going to want to banish our Chessy Cat from our deck. This will do a couple of things. Not only can we now summon the Chessy Cat, of course, off of her banish effect, but we can now activate the effect of Chessy Cat. We can banish the Malice in the Mirror that we added earlier off of the Red Ransom, and draw a couple of cards. Not only do we get to draw a couple of cards, but we can now activate the effect of Malice in the Mirror. We're going to want to banish, actually, the White Rabbit. Even though we've already used the banish effect, we're still going to want to do this. And now, we can add the March Hare from our deck to our hand. Let's link one of our main deck Malice monsters here into Link Decoder. and now we can special summon March Hare by banishing whichever card we sent off. Alright, at this point, we are going to want to make White Binder. Let's do that with Link Decoder, Red Ransom. Think about this for a second. I'm trying to remember if it actually super matters which ones you use here, because we're not going to go for Firewall Dragon. I think we could actually keep Red Ransom on the field here. Make the White Binder. Now, at this point, we, as always, check our graveyard. Is there anything that gets a banish effect? We could banish March Hare and add it back if we wanted to, but there's also not a ton of, like, reason to do that. There's also not really a reason not to do it, so we can activate White Binder, sure, banish March Hare, nothing else, because we're gonna, you know, not be able to get anything else back, and then Link Decoder gets to come back off of its own effect. We'll add back March Hare. Actually, the funny thing is you could add back any of the other Malice monsters you banished, so you can even just get back like a Dormouse for follow-up plays if you really wanted to. Alright, we can activate our White Binder to get our GWC back onto the field. We're definitely going to want that for our follow-up turn. Alright, and at this point, we have a couple of options again. So, if you wanted to, you could simply link everything on the field into either Heart Scripter, if you're not playing Terahertz, or if you just want to, or Terahertz. We did also manage to get away without using our normal summon, so if we wanted to, we could, in theory, normal summon here as well, and then go into Firewall Dragon using Link Decoder and Red Ransom. Now we activate the effect of Firewall Dragon to add back whichever Malice main deck monster is still in our graveyard. We can go Lingeribo by linking off whichever monster is connected to Firewall Dragon. Activating the Firewall Dragon effect in order to summon whichever monster we added back. And we're in a similar spot where now, if you wanted to, you could make Terahertz or Heart Scripter and also have either Lingeribo or randomly keep the Firewall Dragon if you want to. So, again, Firewall Dragon, optional. You do have the ability to go into an extra body. I think here, personally, I would once again go into Terahertz and I would actually use the Firewall Dragon, keeping Lingeribo around in anticipation of going into a mirror match. And then, of course, once you have Terahertz up, we simply send the D-Save Worm from the deck to the graveyard. And then, of course, as always, as ever going into the opponent's turn, you would want to, at some point during their turn, when they have something in the graveyard you want to banish, activate GWC, bringing back the White Binder, gaining your life points, White Binder effect, banish 1 to 2 cards out of their graveyard. Again, let's even just assume that we're banishing 2 out of their graveyard and banish Red Ransom out of ours. We get to go Red Ransom F here. And we can banish from our deck the White Rabbit. And of course we get to activate not only the Red Ransom to add even more follow-up. Oh, but we were also supposed to activate White Rabbit there. I just kind of skipped through it by accident. Activate White Rabbit, set the Mad Hatter Tea Party. You know the drill. You get another banish there. So there you go. There are all of the 1-card Malice combo lines. Hopefully you found that information helpful. I'm going to show off the build one last time as I talk about the deck a little bit more as we go into the outro. There you have it. There are all of the 1-card combos you need to know for Malice without having to use TB-11. Again, if you would like to see the TB-11 combo lines, feel free to let me know in the comments below, and I can certainly make that video and try that build as well. As far as Malice as a deck at its power level, I think we are absolutely looking at a huge tier 1 threat. A lot of people have asked me if Malice is going to be tier 0. I actually suspect the answer is no for a few reasons. This deck does have a few notable weaknesses. One is Max C. Now you might say, oh, well, a lot of decks, pretty much every deck is weak to Max C. But there are quite a few meta decks that have some combo lines that you can make a some amount of disruptions under Max C, MALISS really does not have that option. It doesn't have a clean line to go into if you do get hit with the Max C. Fulos isn't quite as bad, but Max C is very brutal. The second is actually going to be Artifact Lancia, which you've probably already seen on ladder. Artifact Lancia, of course, is a hand trap. I actually have it crafted right over here that says, during your opponent's turn, you can tribute this card from your hand to face up field. Neither player can banish cards for the rest of this turn. Obviously, not being able to banish cards is a pretty big issue. I'll touch on this in a future video in more detail, but we're also not playing Lancia in this build because of the fact that we want to banish cards during our opponent's turn, if we go first. And finally, going second is actually a pretty big issue for this deck a lot of the time. Because it is a long form combo deck, it is pretty susceptible to negates early on, especially you know before you can make Appaloosa in like the Dormouse line. So things to keep in mind when you're playing this deck. Hopefully you found the information in this video helpful. Let me know in the comments below if you did. Sorry about that. But yeah, I really do appreciate you watching, especially all the way to the end. That's gonna do it for now. Let's move on to our outro. Hey everybody, HexLex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/HexLex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is HexLex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.